Hi
There
everyone,
you
it's Russ here, and it's UFO Paranormal TV, and I have got Joe Swanson on the show again, who's a regular, a little bit like my friend Les, and fantastic people to have on your show anytime. And let's introduce Joe. So, hi Joe, how are you doing?
Hi. Well, I'm here.
Yeah. So, a lot been going on in the news this well for the past sort of like 4 weeks really, but I've been contacted, sort of like by newspapers, and they're asking,
Uh-huh.
what's my opinion and what's your opinion on what's going on in America. um you know Sitting there basically, and having the people that well, insiders talking about what's going on with UFOs, aliens, and what have you, and it just makes me wonder because, there's part of me that says, like, yourself, Joe,
Yeah.
when people have been involved in military and in the government and these specialist groups, etc., coming out and telling people, what's going on. People always, sort of like wonder. It's like I
Well,
get, and I'm not in a group in the military, as in, sort of like in my country,
yeah.
as in a regular soldier. Obviously,
Uh-huh.
I've been taken and put into a military unit, an alien military unit. A
Yeah.
little bit different, a little bit different.
It is quite different, yes.
So, what's your opinion on all this, then, Joe?
Well, um, this is a report that I read. I don't know whether you can see it or not.
No, not right. Right, good.
Okay,
If you read it to us, so we
it's
know
a
what it is.
report on the Subcommittee on National Security and the Border and Foreign Affairs hearing is what it's called.
Right.
And what it is it's a report on the UFO hearings that they've had
Yeah.
in Washington, D.C. And I have the idea from reading this. It's like 67 pages of
Yeah.
testimony that we're not getting the full story yet. As to what's going on. They're trying to make it look like they're giving us everything, but they're not.
No. How can
So,
they?
huh? What was
How
that?
can they? How can they give us what's really going on? Because, let's be honest about it. I mean, I've got people now saying to me, "Oh, they've come out with the truth. They've said that aliens exist," and they haven't said that whatsoever.
No, they haven't.
That what they've said is what is out there flying about, which is kicking their butts and everybody else's butts that are coming into contact with his craft. Right? Yeah, like they're chasing them around, and basically these things are going off at thousands of miles an hour, stopping, coming back, side by side, coming up close, looking, and then taking off, sometimes disappearing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that exists, that's going on, but oh, is it? And they said, well, I mean, the last time I think, Joe, they said could it be the Chinese? Because this is America saying, could it be Chinese? You don't say that. You don't say superpower.
No.
Like yourself, have got better technology, than you. It could be the Russians. You know,
Uh, yeah, they're saying a lot of that. There are programs of captured UFOs in the U.S. and in Russia and China.
yeah,
Um, that much I know from what I've read.
yeah,
And to be honest with you, I think that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is actually human made.
mm,
Uh, most of the black triangles that I've seen follow the patterns for the TR3B. and there's basically two sizes on that. I mean, there's more sizes now, but there were originally about two sizes. One was about 250 foot on a side, and the other one was about 650 foot on a side.
Mm.
And the U.S. Back in 1963, on the cover of Popular Mechanics, which was a magazine, or is a magazine here in the U.S.,
Yeah.
they had something called the iconograph on it. And that was a triangle craft that used ionic thrust to lift. And that was a prototype. And that technology developed over the years. They talk about the speed of the UFOs, and they're running about, they say they run about 4,000 miles per hour. And the fellow by the name of T.T. Brown, Thomas Townshend Brown,
Yeah.
before World War II, had demonstrated that using electrogravitics, he could fly a disc at 4,000 miles per hour in the atmosphere, and it flew much faster outside of the atmosphere. And that was just a model.
Yeah.
That was not a full size machine. So, a lot of this technology that they're saying is alien can actually be made. There can actually be a premise for it made in the U.S. or in China or Russia or any place with appropriate technology.
Well, England for a start off, because
Yeah,
we was asked to close our space program down by America.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
can remember, we was asked,
Yeah, I remember that.
because of being side by side in the war. In the war, that's out of a
Yeah,
joke actually from over here a show. But because we're brothers in arms,
yeah,
and why we did, I don't know. I'll be honestly truthful to you. Why we didn't tell America, look, get on your bike. We're going to be here. We had a place. Well, it was um, in Australia,
uh-huh.
right? Yeah, and
You're talking about
part
Pine
of
Gap.
the United Kingdom and what have you, sort of like back then, Great Britain, etc. And we closed this amazing rocket facility up in the west coast, going up towards Scotland,
Uh-huh.
and building all sorts. I mean, we've got one of the amazing um, air companies which build aircraft over in a place near the Berwyn Mountains in North Wales,
Uh-huh.
and they build the Airbus and
Uh-huh.
wings parts and stuff, like
Yeah.
massive. So it's like this country, has been out there, and I don't know why. I don't know why it ever was let, sort of like another country tell us what to do. I'm just sort of like beat by, but that's my country, unfortunately, run by fools. So anyway,
Well,
yeah.
it was probably a negotiation that your country got something for shutting it down.
Oh, it did, yeah,
Yeah.
probably. But
Yeah.
the,
That's typical the way these things work
yeah,
is through a
it is.
negotiation.
Yeah, because the
Um,
thing is, who knows, But I know that one thing, that the British people never get anything out. The people in power get, yeah, but it don't
yeah.
come down to the Joe public, the working
Yeah.
class people. Don't come
Yeah, it's
down
the
to
same
them.
here.
They never see anything. But
It's the
anyway,
same. It's the same
so
here.
yeah, so there's all this technology, and what we're saying is that, yeah, there was some technology that some very, very brilliant scientists had, come along and put these what you call it, craft it together and what have you.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting reports that I read was a report over in England about a couple bobbies saw a UFO. I don't remember the name of it or the incident or where it was, and the UFO had a wind circling around it.
Yeah.
And they commented on this wind going around. Well, if you ionize the mass of the air around your vehicle
Yeah.
and circle it like that, you can create an artificial gravity with centrifugal and centrifugal forces. And
Joe,
one of
can I
my
ask you
uncles,
something? So,
yeah,
would that look like, for all intents and purpose, would that look like a tornado?
you probably wouldn't see the air moving, but
Right.
you could feel the wind coming off of it. But that's
Yeah, but
basically
you
what a
don't see
tornado.
it. You don't see air moving. What you
Yeah,
see is you see the debris around
yeah.
moving.
And if they're up in the atmosphere and they're hovering, you aren't going to see the debris moving around the vehicle, but you may feel some wind on the ground, or feel or see some debris on the ground moving. But they
But
didn't
what
comment.
happens if, say, for instance, there were leaves and what have you and light objects? Would you
Yeah,
get the same? Obviously, I'm thinking, well, if you've got this going round,
yeah.
how couldn't you have debris going up and round it like leaves
Well,
and
if it's
especially if
such
it were low down, Joe?
if it's pushing down,
Yeah,
the debris would be coming out,
yeah,
and you'd only see the debris going up is if it was sucking air up.
right. But you'd see the debris moving away then, wouldn't you? You wouldn't see
Yeah,
it going round. You'd see it.
yeah.
You'd still see
Uh,
movement, which I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to think of. I seen a picture where there'd been a bad storm, or so they said,
uh-huh.
and I'm just putting two together. Could the bad storm be the UFOs?
It could be.
Really?
Not necessarily, but it could be. The Earth
Right.
has all
It's a
these air currents
question, though.
going
It's a
on anyway.
question.
Yeah,
It's a
it's a good question to ask. Um, how another thing, when I was probably about 10 or 11, uh, my uncle, who was a bush pilot up in Alaska delivering mail, had
Yeah.
flown in for a family reunion. And so I asked him, how would you create anti-gravity? And he said, well, I do it every day in my job. And I said, well, how's that? And he said, well, I have a bucket that's on a gimbal, and I put the mail into the bucket, and then I circle around the homestead where I'm delivering the mail to, and the bucket slides down the rope that I have. I change my speed, and the bucket slides up the rope when they put their mail back into it. So I never have to land, and I can deliver and pick up mail. Well, that's the same thing that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically anti-gravity.
Hi, Johnny. Yeah, I get
So,
it. Yeah.
so I mean, this is not something new.
No,
You
definitely not.
you talk about the vehicle disappearing.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the Philadelphia experiment when they made a ship disappear, the Eldridge.
Eldridge, yeah. You see there again, you were talking about it was all designed around the principle of electronic or electricity.
They used a rotating electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
I mean, they ionized the air around the vehicle,
Yeah.
and then they had two magnetic fields, degaussing coils, that
Coils, yeah.
circulated the energy around it. And that ship disappeared from the dock in Philadelphia Harbor. I think it was Philadelphia, and reappeared 610 nautical miles away.
Yeah.
And the dock to dock from the beginning to the end of the experiment was 10 minutes in our time.
Wow.
And that, like I said, according to Francis Bittner,
Every
that
so
was
many years.
he was sent over to England to help with the mines in the Thames and stuff, the magnetic mines that the Germans were planting.
Yeah.
He came back from England because a magician over there had showed him how to do that. And so then they started up here. Well, Tesla said no, he didn't want to have anything to do with it because it was hard on people. Those types of electromagnetic fields are hard on people, and you have to isolate them in like a Faraday cage to keep the people safe. I didn't get that.
Yeah, you've got some spheres up close. Take a look when you get time if you want to see them. No problem.
Oh, okay.
UFO channel.
And so
Nice to
like
meet you there. Now then, did you say a magician from England?
Yeah, a stage magician.
Yes.
They had advertised in the newspapers back.
Yeah, I remember
This could probably be about 41, 42, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Is my guess. And so what he did is a stage magician. They came to see his show. He made a girl disappear. He made a rabbit disappear. All that stuff. And then they went backstage, and he had on a pedestal a ship in an aquarium. He went over to the wall, turned on the power switch. The ship disappeared. Turned it off, and it reappeared. A little model ship.
Yeah.
And so they asked him, is this how you made the girl disappear or the rabbit? He said, no, this is hard on people. Any organic living thing, this is hard on.
Yeah.
So don't do it. But that's a way to make it invisible. They brought that back to the US. They offered Tesla to work it out. And he said, no, that's going to be hard on people. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Einstein actually gave them the math, from what I understand. And then they had a whole bunch of people working as calculators. And what a calculator was back then is someone who worked at an adding machine type of thing. And these big adding machines, the clunk, 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 clunk as they go. And so they had them working out all the math for the thing. And it required 3 dynamotors. So it had one that provided the ionization field in its frequency. And then they had 2 more for the degaussing coils on the ship that they had. And I was really surprised. I talked with a friend who was in Vietnam back in 68 in 68 in the Navy. And he was an electrician on the aircraft carrier Lexington. And he had to make sure that the coils were proper resistance and proper frequency, and that the dynamotors work, but he was not allowed to connect any of them unless they're in a state of nuclear war.
Right, we've just got a question from Johnny. What does heavy metals in people's bodies and something coming up being switched on like tin foil in a microwave? Yeah,
Could be like that. Could be like tin foil in a microwave, because you are working with some of the frequencies. But
I think what Johnny's getting at, I don't know, I could be wrong. One of the other things is with over here and in America, when they're turning on the 5G, right?
Yeah.
People are saying that it's having it's causing problems to people.
I can believe that.
It's causing what do you call it now? A problem with like pneumonia and your chest building up and what have you, fluid and what have you. There's a name for it. I'd seen it where it had happened at cattle mutilations because when they've used the meters and put them on, and they said, like there's so many kilohertz,
Uh-huh.
sort of like, and what they've said is that it's basically being killed by radio waves. Something had caused this to happen. There's a name for it now. What happens when your blood congeals and what have you, and
EMF and radiation.
yeah, well, yeah, but it's more to do with the actual the what do you call it?
The frequency.
The power, the frequency, yeah.
Frequency and power are the two things that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was on Skinwalker Ranch. I was watching that, and they said that
They get a 1.6 gigahertz signal.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so what about us?
Yeah,
What about
I've heard
humans
rumors
though?
that Skinwalker is no longer going to be on the air.
No. But what about that was just an example, but what about us? What about human beings? What about human beings,
They've done a lot of research on frequencies back in probably about the 1980s. I came across a document that had a list of all kinds of frequencies and what their effects were on the human beings and on the body. And anyway, they
I'm
were
listening,
using.
yeah.
I was just reading what was on the screen. They had the National Institute of Health over here, and DARPA funded all these research projects, and they had all kinds of researchers saying, well, what happens if you use this frequency, or what happens if you use that one? And I actually saw one list of frequencies that controlled, so you knew what the frequency was for every single muscle in the body to activate it and deactivate it.
Yeah.
And the frequencies that they had created all kinds of different mental states. I mean, you could make someone think they're insane using the thing. And they had certain frequencies that you couldn't use because they harmed human beings that they listed in there. And so, like the U.S. has something called the Voice of God, and that's as I remember, is an ultrasound program where they can say something in this ultrasound, and you will hear it, and you think it's the voice of God in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, I've actually seen that being used on a documentary when they can actually talk, and it's a directional beam.
Yeah.
At you, and
Actually,
there's only you.
They can have one or two sources of it, and if they've got two sources, they can triangulate them to just one person in a crowd.
That's right, and it's directional. It goes to one person, and what happens is that person, only hears it. He's talking, telling everybody, and they think he's either schizophrenic, which are putting people, like down to being schizophrenic. Now, the thing is, what you've got to ask is, have some people been targeted because they know too much and this happens to them where they start talking, and people then are classed as schizophrenics, right?
Yep.
Or, obviously they are people that are schizophrenics,
Oh yeah, there are.
right?
But
But that's one way to class somebody as a schizophrenic by targeting them. How many
yeah,
people have been targeted? How many
well,
people, for
I
whatever
think
reason?
you'll find schizophrenia,
Yeah,
the real schizophrenia, is actually an infection.
right.
Uh, it it's like an autoimmune disease.
Yeah,
Autoimmune diseases are like 2 and 3 part poisons, where you can have one or two, but when you get all three, you get the disease.
right.
And I think you'll find that in schizophrenia. I was reading a report in Discover magazine, and the researcher was doing some work on schizophrenia,
Yeah,
and he found in his research that the mitochondrial DNA of gene 6 and gene 7 were damaged.
right.
And that's typically where you're, and someone else was researching another autoimmune disease, like I think it was MS.
Can
And
you
the two,
actually reverse it? Because I've been talking to a gentleman. In
I
fact,
think you can.
you
I
told me
think,
about that device,
uh-huh,
the different sound device.
yeah.
Can that reverse it?
I don't think it can. I think what you have to use is you have to kill off the bacteria and virus that are causing it, and then you have to rebuild the mitochondrial DNA, and you can do that with acetyl-L-carnitine and arlopoic acid. The acetyl-L-carnitine will repair the damage to the mitochondrial DNA,
Yeah,
and the arlopoic acid will remove the debris from the repair so it doesn't reinfect your body.
right, right. So that
I'm
is.
sorry, I got a little too
Say
technical,
again, sorry.
probably.
I didn't hear.
So,
Sorry, Joe.
okay. So, I mean, like they've now engineered the black triangles in the US to be able to fly through rock, and they're using frequency in the hundreds of terahertz to be able to do that. I don't know what VMAX is.
No. Casp.
Oh, he's talking about CRISPR
Yeah, nine.
for
Case
doing,
nine. Yeah.
for doing repair on DNA and stuff.
Yeah. So the thing is, yeah, we're talking about going through. So we're talking about a vehicle, a craft going through solid matter.
Yeah,
Well, I told you about when I were abducted, and on our suits, there's a dial and a button, and we walk through solid matter. Do you remember me telling you about that?
yeah, I remember that.
It's it's the same kind of thing, but there's
Yep,
only one problem. Never ever, and I were always wary. If you press a button in, keep it in until you walk through the solid object, and
never
then
release it while you're
never
in the middle.
release it. I'd seen somebody once, right? You tripped up, right? Yeah, and dropped, and he was stuck. I presume I didn't actually see him trip up, but I'm presuming he must have tripped up for him to take his hand off and to stumble half through a wall and to be screaming, and he were dead, but he were
Yeah,
alive.
yeah,
And there was nothing you could do apart from the unit leader actually killed him.
yeah. I
You
can
know what I
believe
mean?
that.
He said they had to put him out of his misery. There's nothing we can do.
You see, after the Philadelphia experiment, there were reports that some of the people that were there uh, ended up wearing a frequency generator around their belt. And if the batteries died on their frequency generator, they're up on, I don't know what story of the VA hospital. I think this was out in Bethesda, Maryland. Uh, they're on one of the upper floors, and they get a strange look on their face and walk through the wall and disappear to never be seen again when the generator quit.
Wow.
So yeah, frequency controls so much stuff.
Now the other
And
thing, Joe, the other thing, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
It's like with me being a super soldier, people say, oh, you don't look like it. Well, I don't like using the word 20 and back. Right, yeah.
yeah.
I don't like
Uh,
using the word um
Neither do I.
I don't like using it. It's so many people have used it, and then people have found out that they've been talking rubbish. I've never
Yeah.
called it 20 and back. Now,
Well,
obviously, I still am
you're
taken, and I have been. Never said I was still in the unit as such, and I've never, for years after those first 20 years, even though you're still taken, and that's something again, that you're not really happy with, even though you're taking it, even though you're not fighting as such. But sort of like, so I just like to let people know, no, from 16 when it started to like just over 40 and what
yeah,
have you, that is my sort of like me being in that unit. People, and they talk about thank you, this service business. No, yeah, God, sort of like I don't like people saying that to me. I didn't serve you, and I didn't serve your country, and I didn't serve
yeah,
my country. I served an alien race,
yeah.
and
And
believe
that's
me, we're all
basically it.
out there fighting,
Yeah.
and it's a hellhole, and every country's fighting more or less around the world, and they've all got sometimes more than one what you would call alien allies,
Yeah.
because of the presidencies, call it, that have changed, right? Yeah, and some are left, some are right, and some are in the middle, and they all want to dance the dance with the different aliens. My country's just the same. Whoever's going to do them good, they'll agree to whatever terms, not what for the people, for them, the people in power.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not us people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
So,
know what you mean.
one of the things that I'm going to ask you now, because this is something else, and I always see these Adonises walking around, being abducted. I'm a super soldier and what have you. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? You know, it's had an adverse effect on me, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got lacerations, blisters. I've got marks. I've got problems. Me, there's all sorts of problems that I've got. There's some that I've got because the problems have caused me that I can't walk, and I'm in a lot of pain. So I just piled weight on. But it's all the other stuff. It's like the ME, fibromyalgia,
Yeah.
and the chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yeah.
And it's down to us being taken, and the power what is used to take us, right? Yeah. And for us to disappear and appear like their craft. Can you imagine the power that we must have had? I don't mean power, oh, I'm powerful. I'm talking about the power,
The
volts,
energy involved to do
the
it.
energy that must
Yeah.
have been around us in our bodies when we were taken and brought back. Could you
Well,
imagine what it's done to us? You know yourself,
it
Joe.
depends on how they do it. They can you could basically
Yeah, but
project
Joe, the thing is, what
a
I'm saying
bubble
is,
around
most of the
someone.
people that I've met have got this.
Yeah.
Most of the people that I've met, like myself, you know yourself.
Yeah.
Is this why we've become ill? Is this why we've become ill?
Uh, it could be. What I found, like the fibromyalgia and the Sjogren's that I've had, I was able to kill the the bacteria and virus in my system that caused
Right.
them. And so now I don't have those things continually um, degrading my system,
Yeah.
but I still have to recover from everything that they've done over the past 40 years.
And what's that down to? What's that down to, Joe?
Well, I'm going to the pain clinic to try and get over the migraine headaches.
No, I mean, what is your illness? What do you
What is
think
my
it's down
illness?
to?
Well, fibromyalgia is the random roaming pain that goes throughout your body, and it's nerve pain, nerve problems.
And where do you think it came from?
Well, they tell me it came from Borrelia burgdorferi, which is a bacteria that feeds on magnesium and not carbon. And when I ran the kill frequencies for that, and it's a bear cat to kill because you can't kill it with antibiotics. Antibiotics causes it to produce something called a nanobacteria or L-form bacteria. And
Yeah.
basically it strips off the cellular body and the nucleus condenses into just a small dot.
Right.
And this is why the doctors have to autoclave their tools and stuff, is because unless they autoclave them, that dot still lives and it can reinfect other people.
So the thing is, I put this down, right? Yeah, because I were okay until I were abducted, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
and
think there's link?
so was I. I was okay until I was taken.
Now it's like anything else, right? Yeah. When you get a different race, when you come across a different race, and you can look in history, right? Yeah, and it's not being racist in a way at
Hmm.
all. But when you look at the indigenous populations, I can look in this country at the what you call the Stone Age man
Uh-huh.
who lived here, who built all the great buildings, stone monuments.
Yeah.
Then, when somebody came over from the steppes, Caucasians with blonde hair, the primitives were short, 5 foot, with brown eyes, right?
Hmm.
And when the Beaker people came over, they were tall, with blonde hair and blue eyes. And what they found, they had better weapons, which were metal weapons.
Uh-huh.
What they looked at, because they were looking for atrocities, had the people, the Stone Age people being killed. And what they said was, it looked like a plague. They'd brought a plague with them. A
Yeah.
little bit like what happened to the American Indians as well,
Yeah. The
with the
the
blanket.
smallpox,
Yeah, with the blankets.
mm,
So the
giving
thing
them.
is, if we're meeting aliens, right, yeah,
Hmm.
is the same
Uh,
thing happening? It's obvious it must.
well, it could be that. It could very well be that, and it could be that it's been around for a long enough time so that that bacteria that I'm talking about, Borrelia burgdorferi,
Yeah.
is actually in ticks and other blood-sucking insects, and they pass it from one person to another.
Right, of course, yeah. I've heard
You know,
this with
so we're far enough along in the chain, so I can't definitely
no,
say that it's alien.
no,
But this bug, the Borrelia burgdorferi, essentially is an alien type bug. I don't. It's different than all the other ones.
yeah.
You know. And like COVID-19, I firmly believe is an engineered virus.
Well, Johnny does.
Uh,
Johnny was just saying,
because you know, back again, 1963,
politics. Yeah, exactly.
A Chinese worker from Wuhan, China, who was in their level 4
Yeah,
bioweapons lab, came over to the U.S. He gave it to the U.S. all the
yeah,
research that he had done, and that was disseminated among all the allies,
yeah.
right? So that they could do experiments on their own people, because
Mm.
they're not allowed to experiment on other people, but they can on their own people.
Oh, yeah.
And there were the different, at that time they're looking at uh, different things they can load inside of a virus.
Mm.
This is like the L-form bacteria that I was telling you about. They were working
That's
off of
right. Yeah,
L-form bacteria, and they were loading up chickenpox as the
yeah.
virus to carry it, and taking out the DNA of one and putting in the DNA of the other.
Mm.
So when the virus came, the chickenpox virus that you had, you'd get some other disease with it.
Yeah. So what we've got, right? Yeah, and this is it. It's like you know, there's there's so many things linked to this, and sort of like,
Well, they've been around for centuries.
oh yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah. But I mean, yeah. Well, exactly what's going on in the Ukraine.
yeah.
And like I've said, I don't know why. I'm totally against us being anything to do with Ukraine. We need to keep our noses out. Nothing to do with us. Sort of like I think most Americans think the same thing. Why are you there? Why are we there? Because I'll tell you now,
Why did Russia invade to begin with?
well, did they?
Huh?
Did they?
Yeah.
No.
The story that we have is that they
Oh,
invaded to
yes.
begin with.
This is the problem, Joe. He says,
And
she says, and that is
I
the big
know
problem.
it's
And
wherever we
and
go.
this is New World Order. Remember, they
Yeah.
want people to believe, and they
Well,
want you to
I'll
believe
tell you,
everything your government says. I
I'll
would
tell
not
you,
trust
I'll
my
tell you, a
government
war
for
is a
one
real
minute.
good place to acquire people for
Every
other
time there's
things.
been a war, First and Second World War, right?
Hmm.
Always started in Eastern Europe. Always, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to keep out of it.
Well, like
Uh,
Vietnam, the cover story for me, because I'm Vietnam era
yeah.
and I was in the
Um,
service.
well, the thing
The
is,
cover story was that I was missing in action in Vietnam.
I
I never
remember you
went to
said,
Vietnam.
Joe. Johnny says that they blew up the COVID labs.
They wanted me for 20 years.
Yeah. Joe,
And
Johnny
that
was
was it.
just saying, I've heard this. Whether it's
Yeah.
true or not, I don't know. But what was said, right, yeah, that Putin knew about the COVID labs and
Yeah.
they blew them up. If you believe it, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because this is it. One says, he says, she says. But it's a case of you've got to remember there's an anti-Russian feeling. There has been for a long time. Why? I don't know, because always got on side by side, made money and what have you together. But what it is, all governments at the top are linked to all the governments, all the big so-called families and royal families, which I don't believe in for 1 minute, by the way, all there, all making money on other people's misery, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the problem is, and this is, I don't want war, and people around the world don't want war.
Exactly.
And we don't want to kick off something, and my country is not bothered about the people. It's oil, right? Yeah, it's food. They put prices up, and there's no reason to put the prices up.
Oh, it's
We've got
totally
oil fields. We
controlled.
own oil fields to the UK, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
One of the reasons why the Americans came into the war was because they thought there was going to blow up the oil fields and petroleum fields, right? Yeah. So the Americans said, "Oh, we better join in here with the English, right? Yeah, because if you had no oil, you had no petrol, right? You were stuffed. No
we have
alternative
we
coming
have
to the war.
oil fields that they haven't even
All
touched.
in Africa. They're all in Africa, and the Africans, if you remember, were working with the Nazis. A lot of the sort of like Middle Eastern were in Waffen SS units and what have you in North Africa, in like Asia and what have you. But this is in particular, this is particular one thing where the Americans had to come in really because they thought that Rommel were going to kick our butts, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and the oil fields would be taken over. So it was like, oh, I think we better get on board with British. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But anyway, so like I say, there's no reason, sort of like we should have any war with Russia whatsoever. It's as simple as that. Not done anything to us. If they have done, if they did destroy those labs, good on them. Good on them. Because the thing is, they're giving it to everybody, and the amount of people that have been given the COVID jab and that have died, that have had life-threatening illnesses afterwards, is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And now they're going to kick it off again. Everybody's on holiday. They'll come back and they'll say the COVID started, and we're going to have to give you a new injection. Everybody knows what they're doing.
You know what the
Everybody
kill
knows.
frequency is for COVID?
Pardon?
The kill frequency for the COVID,
What is it?
365.555 kilohertz, or in other words, 365,555 cycles per second is the kill
Right.
frequency for COVID. And I've actually seen that work. When I
Really?
got COVID in 2019, I didn't know what it was. So I went through the list of kill frequencies.
Yeah.
And for respiratory, because it was a respiratory thing for me. And I came up with 365 kHz, or 365,000 cycles per second. And anyway, I used that,
Yeah.
and it was close enough to get it to work. And it was later that I found out it was 365.555.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Like I said, we have so much oil in this country that we don't need to tap. And what it was the big oil barons got together and decided, hey, let's go elsewhere and tap all of their oil and tap ours last, is what they decided.
Well, this is it, like I say. And Africa had the most, and they were scared of us getting as asses kicked and what have you. But good old
Well, I know
English
that
spirit out there. You know what I
Dad
mean?
was in
England
North
help.
Africa, was the Canadians and British
Yeah,
before the U.S. entered World War II.
that's right. Yeah.
He
So I
was
mean,
one
the
of the
thing is,
paratroopers over there.
say again. Sorry.
He was a paratrooper.
Right. So, like I say, it's a case of that's what it is. That's what it. Sort of like oil, and it's still a game what they're fighting for, and even now today. But of course, there's this new thing called power, and it's battery power. Is it going to kick off? Cost more money to make batteries. you still got to get energy from somewhere.
I just saw something that was kind of interesting. By mixing carbon black with concrete, they can make a battery that takes a charge really quick and holds it for a long period of time.
Really?
Yeah. Talk about cheap. That's cheap.
Wow. Flip. The only trouble is it's the weight, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the only
Well,
problem with that.
it's not any more weight than what they're doing right now. They're using heavy metals.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Unless if you could get rid of the weight of the water in the concrete, because most of the weight is the water, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's the mass of the solids. It's the solid mass. The
Yeah,
water is
but
just about
what?
the water is just a catalytic agent.
Right.
It
But
it it vaporizes off. A friend of mine did an experiment. He was a research chemist, and what he did is he took what was it? Plaster Paris, I believe is what it was he used. And he puts them in a cup, a paper cup, and he had the paper cup in a vacuum. And you drop a couple drops of water on it. The
yeah,
plaster, the plaster expanded and foamed out of the thing, and the hydrogen and oxygen vaporized off of it because they were just a catalyst.
right.
And so what he was left with was a material, a ceramic, that had a thermal resistance of over R60 per inch.
Right.
So it would provide really good thermal isolation.
But the
Imagine if,
problem is, Joe, and it's going back to oil, and it's the people that've got the money invested, the oil barons,
yeah,
and the people that are in the pockets, yeah, of the
yeah,
oil barons in everybody's country, don't want this.
yeah. Purich, I can't remember, A. Purich. I can't pronounce his first name.
Yeah,
Was an instructor at Texas A&M University, and he got government funding, and they're looking for a way to make a vehicle run on hydrogen and oxygen.
right.
And so he had his students working on it. You know, he figured this is all public domain stuff because it's public funding that he got. He made a device about the size of a coffee can. And what this device did is it used resonant frequencies, to convert the hydrogen and oxygen in water, separate it out as hydrogen and oxygen, and then feed it to the engine. And they ran this vehicle around the perimeter of the United States, stopping off at different colleges and universities on their trip
Yeah,
and showing how it worked. In order to do this, they took a Winnebago motorhome, and they had to disable three of the cylinders. It's an 8-cylinder engine. They had
yeah.
to disable three of them. Otherwise, it produced too much power in the engine, and it will break the engine apart. And one of the stories that was told at one of the
How did they
conventions,
do that? When if you've got pistons working together, you'll stop 3 pistons, you'll seize it up.
the explosive power was so great, the pistons weren't designed to take it, and it would rip the crankshaft apart
Right.
on a V8. But anyway, after he did this trip and showed everyone, I mean, he talked about, we're in the mountains in Denver area, and we had to put snow underneath our armpits to melt it into water so that we could get water in, because it had froze overnight on our fuel lines. And that way we could get it started and get the heaters going so that we could get the water melted, the ice melted in our tank, and continue our trip. But he got home, and Pure Rich committed suicide.
Wow.
He shot himself in the back of the head 3 times and then firebombed his house.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
So
I know what
someone
you're
did.
saying.
He was dead set on giving it out to the public.
Well, you see, this is it, isn't it? This is it.
And this was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So
And these people, you see, the families,
his
but then
patents are
again,
still on. His patent for it is still online.
wow. Who'd go near it? Who would go near it?
I don't know. Well,
No.
you look at what happened to Searle over in England
Mm,
with the work that he was doing with magnetics.
yeah.
He got jailed for it, and I don't know what happened after that. I lost track of him. But he had a disc that would fly all on its own power.
You
Just
see,
from
this
shifting
is.
magnet.
I've just been told, right? Yeah, not so long since we've got an heater, right? Yeah, for us, as radiators, central heating, and it said it's what did they say now? You just said earlier about using water. What do you call it? Hydrogen.
Yeah, it's a catalyst.
And there's a ring. And the chap said I said, what's that for? And he said, that's when they're putting the new hydrogen into like in the pipes running alongside your gas and your water
Uh-huh.
to come in, so that it's going to be hydrogen. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of it happening in
No,
America?
I haven't heard of them doing anything like that. But I wouldn't put past it. We're coming to the point where we're starting to engineer materials on a atomic level
Yeah.
or molecular level, so that they do things that they normally wouldn't do. And that's going to be a fascinating new trend. Years ago they said it was all to be done in plastics, and back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I think this engineered materials is going to be the new thing.
Right.
I mean, the shell of the TR3B, the outer shell, is a material that is lighter than aerogel. You know what aerogel is? That's
Yeah.
a gel that's lighter than this. It's just like you've got air on your hand when you're holding it.
Yeah.
And it's lighter than that aerogel. So it's lighter than air, and it's stronger than titanium.
Well, where's that come from?
Cambridge University has a patent on it.
And right. Well.
By farming this stuff out to companies and universities, they can control that better, and it's not in public domain, if you know what I mean. And I think over here, a patent has a 35-year life expectancy.
Yeah.
Whereas in England, I think you've got like 200 or 300-year life expectancy.
They've got a life. Yeah.
So it's a lot longer. So if they have it done over there and it's patented over there, and we use it, we get the rights to use it over here because we funded the the development. The government doesn't have to say anything about it. It's just something that they came up with somewhere, but no one else can use it because it was done over there. They're gaming the system is what they're doing.
So it's just unbelievable, isn't it? There's
a
name for it. There's actually a name for it in law.
Oh, there is.
What's that? I won't say what it is, but it is. Wow, that is incredible. That is really, But the thing is, I'm just thinking, how would that work? Because who'd actually own it? Who'd actually own the copyright of it?
What was what?
Who'd own the copyright of it?
Well, it was a patent, not a copyright.
Yeah, but if you've got a patent, it's usually copyright, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was told about it. I was told about it from a man in black.
Pardon?
I was told about it from someone I know who used to be a man in black.
Right. Just don't make sense, because why would you get it out? I mean, you've.
Well, he told me about it. He told me about it about 6 months before it was published.
Right.
In the news that they had it.
Yeah.
And if it's in the US, that means they had it for 35 years before they released the material.
Yeah, but why would they want to release it in 35?
They probably didn't, but they probably had to.
Right. That makes more sense.
Like all this information that's coming out on UFOs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Typically in the US, you can only do an NDA for 50 years.
Right.
And so those NDAs are up. And they have no choice but to release what they know from 50 years ago.
Unless they say that they've lost what they did in the UK is, when they were talking about some files, the files were missing. How if you turn around and say, "Oh, the files were destroyed," right? Yeah, like they said, they had, if I remember rightly, what's that stuff called now? Asbestos. There was left in a building with asbestos, and full of asbestosis. Anybody going near it, you'd contract asbestosis, and had to have them destroyed. Right? Yeah. I see another. A lot of documents being destroyed, don't you? You know what I mean?
It's just like my military record is classified above top secret, so it's compartmentalized and whatever. And I tried to get disability from the VA, because when I came out of the Air Force, they said, well, you should get 100% disability. Yeah. And the Veterans Administration said, we don't have any record that you served. And I'm going, well, how can they not have any record that I served? I got my DD 14, which is the document that says I served. And I had a plastic card from the VA that says, you've got disability and you're entitled to all these disability rights. And yet they said, no, we can't find any records on you. Well, the records were classified. And in order to get my disability, I talked with an attorney because we were going through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And, spent years, living off my wife because I wasn't allowed to make any money. I just couldn't do it. And we were going through bankruptcy. And so I started seeing a psychologist. And I told her my story because I'm not supposed to talk, So I told her what I could talk about, and which was the Montauk Project. The attorney knew a psychologist in Washington, D.C., who knew a general who had the clearance to open up my file.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was on the phone listening when she called him to open up my file. And we had some books, phone books in the Twin Cities that were about this thick, 8.5 by 11. And it sounded like he dropped one of those onto his table, desktop from about a foot high when he put it down. And then he said, the Montauk Project. And she said, yes. And then you heard that same sound again. He opened it up as he opened the file up because he had it's tabbed. And he said, give him 70% disability. And you heard the file closed and he hung up the phone.
Wow.
That was all there was to it. But having to know the right person who had the right clearance to be able to look at the file. For the first 10 years I was out of the service, military intelligence monitored my phone and followed me wherever I went. For the next 10 years, now we're into the Montauk Project, it was the NSA, which is the it's the arm of the CIA for the U.S. Right. CIA is not supposed to operate in the U.S., but the NSA does that for them.
Yeah.
So it was the NSA for 10 years. And then after that, it was the FBI for 10 years. And just before 9/11 happened, the FBI gave me an exit interview.
So,
but all those records are classified, and I can't look at them.
So what jobs did you have to do then? What like when you left, what jobs could you do, or was you left basically like a lot of people in limbo with what had happened to you?
Yeah, pretty much in limbo. I worked in electronics. I got a degree in electronics. I did field service engineering for a small computer firm, and I ended up managing 6 states and 3 provinces. I had designed a new computer for them, and that they used for another 10 years. At least I know.
Says, I know, something. I'm not a brain scientist or anything, but be good to put my specs on, wouldn't it? Did you do off-world and other dimensions, Joe?
Yes, when I was in service.
Well, I know, but it's Johnny's asking.
Yeah, when I was in the service. We were outside of time for what we were doing.
And you see, like
the linear time is we look at it here from second to second.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
No. I understand that myself. I mean,
yeah.
This is why I was saying about, me sort
that's
of
why
like
that's why the 20 and back thing makes absolutely no fucking sense. Excuse me.
Never have liked the word. Never like that sentence. I've never liked
it. And the super soldier thing just doesn't. No, we had a super suit that we wore, but it wasn't a super soldier. You saw combat. I didn't. I saw the after effects. I was a technician. They had me cleaning up body parts and dung, among other things.
We got to do here. It would
because they wanted to do DNA testing on everything.
Oh yeah, it would only because I had that ability, being telepathic, that I will put in a telepathic scout unit.
Oh, okay.
All the rest were telepathic. Were all the women, right? Yeah. Most of them were looking at after the alien where they lived, their base, and their planet, what they lived on. I won't say anything about that. Because obviously they could break into their airspace by their like with us when we teleport, and teleportation is a mild version of time travel.
Yes, it is.
when we use our teleport machine mechanism on our, we call them life suits because
Uh,
they keep us alive. Not
yeah,
all this super soldier. I don't like that as well. It's too much. I won't say Americanized, but it's a lot of it come from TV and films.
yeah. It's a
Even though it
fantasy.
comes from Germany originally, the super
Yeah,
soldier originally comes
yeah.
from Germany.
We one of the things I had a problem with was teleportation.
Did you feel sick?
No,
I did
I could
all
do
the
it anytime
time.
I wanted to. That
Say
was the
that
problem.
again.
I got back into the Air Force and they put me on 50 milligrams of Valium 5 times a day to try and slow my
Yeah,
thinking processes down. And I came back and they, when I was getting ready to leave the Air Force, they had someone assigned to watch me. And the first day, they had a guy who was assigned to me, and I hadn't been to the BX in the whole time I've been there. You know, they kept us really isolated because we were in the military intelligence group, and I wanted to see what the BX looked like because I heard they had good deals on stuff. And I went there and bought some
yeah.
magazines, and then went back to the barracks. And the guy who signed with me came back to the barracks about half an hour later, saying to an hour later, and he said, "I don't know what happened. He just vanished in front of my eyes." And I thought, well, that was strange. I walked back. You know, I remember most of the walk. There was a little part in there where I don't remember what happened. I just ended up on the road coming back. And so the next day they had two guys assigned to me to watch me. And I hadn't been to the recreation center. I like to bowl. You know, we have 10-pin bowling over here. And the recreation center had 96 lanes in it. I'd never seen that bowling alley that big. So I went there. They were working on the lanes, so I couldn't do that. So I shot a game of pool and then decided to go back to the barracks. The two guys came back about an hour and a half later and they said, "We don't know what happened. He just vanished in front of us."
Yeah.
Well, I vanished and I was back in the barracks. Anyway, so the next time they've got four guys assigned to me, right? I figured, well, I'm going to be going home soon. I might as well say goodbye to my old DI, right? And so I thought, and I was at his door and I knocked on his door and he said, "Come." He kind of blanched white and he said, "There's a base wide alert out for you." I said, "There is?" I didn't know that. He said, "How did you get by the guards at the gate to my building?" "There's guards there." you know, and what had happened is I just thought to be there and I was there.
Yeah.
That was a leftover from what I did in the service, when I was with the aliens.
Of course, yeah.
And so it really freaked them out. And so I've been very careful not to do any of that ever again.
Do you know
I don't
something,
know.
Joe? You won't
I
believe this.
I don't know
I,
if I could do it again if I wanted to.
that happened to me on my motorbike. I went past this big garage window, right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
massive showroom, right? Yeah, and Land Rovers and Range Rovers, and I used to go past on my chopper motorbike, and I used to look, like this posing, going past, and I looked, and then the next thing, I just thought to myself, I want on my motorbike then. Right, yeah. The motorbike will go in and I'm not on it. Right? Seriously. So I pulled up top at road and I was going pretty fast. I was, you know what I mean? Over here, we used to have these, we were pretty liberal in a way about speeding. Not
Uh-huh.
like now. I've been told when I get back on the road, you'll get banned the first day if you think you're back on, the time when you were back on your motorbike, I turned around, went back down, and there's this there's this pulling where buses used to turn around and go back down.
Uh-huh.
That's as far as they went, right? Yeah, to a place called Thornton, and I, I went past them, and they're looking at me, and I went back up the same, and I went back up, and I had to have a look again just to make sure I was still on my motorbike. Seriously, Joe.
Yeah,
I
I
was,
know.
I was like, and I was, and I thought, well, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was petrified.
Oh yeah. Well, the first time we went in space, and we got to a jump point, and I was in the silver suit, and I really wanted to go home to marry the love of my life,
Yeah,
my wife.
yeah,
And they're talking about me being gone for 20, 40 years or whatever. And so I was kind of homesick, I wanted to come back. I could see the earth and I could see the sun, and I didn't see the moon. And the ship jumped and I didn't.
Were you outside?
I was outside of the ship. It
Yeah,
had
I
gone, and
know.
I had stayed behind. And then
Wow.
they said, "Well, you'll be fine in your suit. Everything's taken care of. You're not going to have any problems. You're going to be able to breathe and everything like that. Here, here's a whole bunch of program learning for you to go through while you're waiting for us to come and get you." So, with the
How
heads
long
up,
were you there?
I was there for about a day.
Right.
But with the heads up display, I went
Yeah.
through and did all that. And, another thing that I noticed was that we never had 8 hours of sleep type of thing. You had to be
No.
able to sleep fast. So you may have an hour of sleep and then you were up for the next 36 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
You've experienced that too, I'm sure,
Yeah.
because
And
that's
the
what I went
problem
through.
is that this,
Now
and
you were in
you
a
burn
barracks,
out.
weren't?
You just burn out with it.
Yeah, yeah. You were in a barracks when you were off world, and I was in a.
At first, with there were 10 of us,
Yeah.
and then when I got basically when I got made into when I went up the rank,
Uh-huh.
and I was unit leader. When I came unit leader, um, I had my own quarters,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah, and I even had a partner. Was but it was one of those things. Um, how can I put it? Whenever it won, so we're just you're together one night, and then but you wasn't close. You wasn't close,
Uh-huh.
if you know what I mean. Yeah, but it's extraordinary. I mean, the room it had everything in, sort of like a bathroom. You could even go and get food. I could say what I wanted, like this microwave thing. I could just go tell it what I wanted, and
Yeah.
it'd be there.
Yeah.
The only thing is, when I asked for orange juice, it always tastes like apple. That was the only qualm I had. Apart from that, it
See,
was all right.
no, I didn't experience any of that. I was kept in a separate little room that makes a monk's cloister look luxurious.
Yeah,
Uh, the walls were lit. There
yeah,
was a platform on the floor that I could use to sit, you know, or a platform that was above the floor that I could use to sit or lay down on. but it really wasn't much bigger than a cell that they
No.
had me in. There was no windows to see anything like that. And, you know, it would the color of the cell walls and stuff would, the intensity of the light would go up and down, and the colors would change, you know, depending on what they wanted me to do and time of day and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But they really didn't want me to do anything other than my cell or whatever work it was, tasks that I was doing. And the interior of the ship, for the bulk of the interior off my room, it was, you know how they used to light dark rooms for photo developing with the
Yeah.
little red lights.
Red light. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what this was. So you could see a little bit in the area and not much shore. And one of the things that I've been left with, and I talked with Bill McNeff. He's someone who's investigated UFO encounters here in the U.S. for 63 years. Yeah, he's talking at Minnesota MUFON tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or not tomorrow, next week on Saturday. And or next Saturday, this coming Saturday. And anyway, I told him, you know, one of the weird things is, you know, I'm colorblind to red and green. And when I went into the service, it was light pastel shades, and it's gotten a little worse since then. But I said, you know, I went in for a sleep study, and
I love it.
they, okay, and the sleep study
For you.
showed me as, you know, they turned on this infrared light that you're not supposed to see. And I had a hell of a time sleeping under that spotlight all the time because it was so damn bright. And they said, well, you can't see this. It's right there. You know, how can I not see it? It's ring after ring after ring of lights. You know, and they're kind of
You
like,
see, to me, right? Yeah, this rings of what they used to do, basically interrogations. You know what I mean? This
well,
to me, it sounds more like, you know, sort of like to try to break you. You know, put
yeah.
you in a room, um, sleep
Well,
deprivation.
they were doing a sleep study on me,
Yeah.
is what they were doing because I've got sleep apnea. But I found out from talking with Bill McNeff that people usually don't see the infrared unless they've had cataract surgery.
Say that again. Sorry.
People don't usually see the infrared unless they've had cataract surgery.
Right. Yeah.
I've got cataracts. I haven't had them removed.
Right.
So why am I seeing it?
Have you had surgery before?
Not that I know of. I mean,
Well.
I've had surgery. I had surgery when I was in space. You know, when I was gone.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
you know, I had a repair on my side
Yeah.
with techniques that they're just now starting to talk about. You know,
Yeah. All this
robots
keyhole surgery and
robots printing muscles and bone and printing uh, nerves and blood vessels,
three
blood
D
and
printing, three
yeah,
D printing, and what have you? Oh, similar. What we call 3D
yeah,
printing now.
yeah, and you can't, you know, I remember the surgery, but you can't see any wounds.
No. No, I know what you're saying.
And they found that people in space will heal really rapidly, and you won't
Yeah.
see any scarring.
No, it's funny you should say that. You know, because I've had a lot of injuries, but I can't understand it really because the life suits were not so. You know, I've been shot in the back twice. Once with a laser, a sound weapon, next to a laser weapon on one of our rifles, and then I was shot in the back with what looked like an Eckler and Koch, which would have been a 5.7, you know, and a fairly big round. This is going back 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit like what you would have, you might have seen them, the SLR, what they used to have, you know, sort of like big rounds, opposed to the smaller rounds, 5.56, you know.
Yeah.
But having said that, as years went on, you know, we came across other armies with different weapons. And
Oh
I
yeah.
knew all the weapons because I were weapon trained, you know.
Yeah.
I had land and I had rifles. And I were in a shooting club, and I preferred, to be honest, I only target shot. Right, yeah, I had
Yeah.
land and what have you, and I had targets up. There were lots of stuff around.
Oh yeah. The group I
Never
was
ever,
with.
never ever shot at anything, any animals or anything. I shot at targets, and same as me bow and arrow, you know, like shot at targets. My philosophy was, if it ain't shooting me, I ain't shooting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know.
That was my philosophy.
Yeah.
Let things live.
Yeah.
You
I
know, sort
agree.
of
I
like
agree. I
it's a
agree.
case of
I didn't use anything like that. One time I was changing out a power supply, and the shields went down, and a T-Rex came in, killed 4 guys, and they took it down with a railgun.
wow.
The T-Rex was 7 foot tall, and it was feathered with blue-black feathers, so it looked kind of strange. They're iridescent, you know, kind of like a crow or a raven.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but that stuck in my mind, and you know, I gutted 3 and took the shoulder off the fourth, so I killed them. And the bodies were all taken back, and I think they reconstituted a couple of them, you know, rebuilt them.
So, what would you say was the most vicious aliens that you came across?
Reptilians.
Which type? Because I know that um, I came across one which are more like dragons. They do
Yeah,
have short tails, some have long tails.
yeah,
Then there's the other ones which are more like a lizard.
yeah. I think the ones I saw were primarily lizard-like,
Yeah,
but
they're
they
all big,
used raptors as shock troops,
right?
and I don't know how they controlled the raptors, you know, uh, but they basically had them work uh, as a troop, and that was a frontline assault. And this T Rex that came in was one of those frontline assault uh, beasts. But I've seen them, you know, I've seen the aftermath of a pitch battle, and in the pitch battle, uh, they had me after it was all over. They had me collecting body parts and dung.
The problem
Uh,
is, them bastards like if they get hold of you, they'll eat you. There's
oh
hardly
yeah,
all left of you.
the raptors like their food fresh and warm. They don't like, you know, warm blooded. They don't like it cooked.
That's what I'm
So
saying. You know what I mean? There's not much to mop up after they've got hold of you.
that's
You
why
know
I
what
was
I mean?
testing dung. That's why I was testing dung.
Yeah,
You know, shit,
yeah.
piles of shit. You'd go through and you'd take samples of to see, you know, what happened, who died, what went through their system.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, you
That's
know,
it. I mean, people just don't understand
we
it.
had
You
like
know what I
we
mean?
had
It's
like
like
big trailers of stuff, high wall trailers that we threw body parts into
never to
and
be
said,
recognised. After only time, sometimes is by your tattoos. If you had
yeah,
tattoos on,
yeah,
but they knew by your DNA anyway. They knew who you
yeah,
were by your DNA.
yeah. Well,
Um,
the group I was with did cloning, so there were several clones of me also
yeah,
at the time.
because they had matches for everybody. They just stick in and they'd say, "This is so and so's DNA." Well, they knew who it was, and they knew
Yeah,
where they were. Well,
yeah,
more or less.
yeah.
Not good at
So
all. Not good at all, mate.
no,
You know it. But that, like you say, that's a mop-up unit that comes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because half the time after you've done battle, you know what I mean, and you go back, debriefed and what have you. You know what I mean? It's like you're taught not to think. Like we, I've seen stuff like there'd be music and dancing afterwards and drink. You'd have a drink and what have you. Like and
yeah,
music and funny thing is you'd have your music in the charts at the time. You know what I mean? As
yeah,
daft as it may sound, so you know, it was a case. So I think it was like wanted you to think you've been home. This is a bit like in Vietnam. Give you
yeah.
Playboy magazines and let you play music, and you feel like you're back home. Trouble is, you're not.
For a little bit.
Yeah, for about
Yeah,
an hour,
yeah.
and then you start remembering, and sort of like it never goes out of your mind. Never, people don't realize.
Well, they blocked it for me when I got home. Blocked most of it,
Yeah,
and it came back as night terrors. My
yeah.
first night back in the barracks after I came back, the first night, I slept with one eye open, watching everything around me.
Sorry, for
And
you. Do you think they'll walk? Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're around
yeah,
us today.
yeah,
No doubt about it. Not all look like aliens.
no.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Like I said, I was with Caucasian aliens. They look just like you and me.
yeah,
Red hair, blonde hair, brown hair, black hair.
yeah, yeah. And one of my friends, I was really in the unit, and called him. He was red hair and like greeny eyes, And I used to call him
Mm,
Judas. He used to take the Mickey out of me. Something shocking. He used to take, and I called him Judas. He said, "I've never heard that one before, Kellet. I've never heard that one.
yeah,
We used to, but we were friends. You know what I mean? We had to be,
yeah, yeah.
and sometimes I think I wonder where he is. You know?
Yeah, it's. I didn't really have any friends there, because I was kept isolated.
Yeah,
I
I know what
went
you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I
But I
one
mean,
time got to see a mess hall for some other beings, and uh, uh, praying mantis in armor is something to be behold. you know,
the ETs are garrisoned and on the planet of the moon. They have bases in several countries, corporations of these governments.
their
This,
bases are probably underground because that was one of the things when I was on a base. not in a vehicle. We were underground most of the time. And so in the US, they talk about something they call DUMBs,
What?
DUMB,
Yeah.
and they're basically underground bases. And when I was working with the phone company, I was designing high capacity circuits, fiber optic stuff. And I got a phone call from a military base in Colorado, because I work Colorado area, and from Minneapolis here, so that's like about 1,000 miles away. And they wanted me to redesign the fiber optics in what they called a hyperloop.
Oh yeah.
And the hyperloop was a maglev train. And in order to control the maglev train at the speeds, they used the fiber optics for controlling it. And so it ran about 500, 600 miles an hour underneath the ground in this great big tunnel. So I redesigned it for them on the fly, and they said it worked. So I was left with that. But it ran
Uh,
supposedly from the Denver International Airport to Grand Junction, Colorado.
and that's like a train type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just bear with us, the Valley for yeah. Um, I've been speaking with the newspapers, and I was in newspaper this morning, and funnily enough, I was talking about that, and it says, where is it now?
I get a chuckle out of the name Valiant Floor. Yeah, I can see that now.
Yeah.
Earlier
Well,
today, I couldn't see that.
so what it is, underwater base in Yorkshire. Well, it should have read undersea base in North Sea. Really, that should have
Uh-huh.
been the title, because in the North Sea, and a lot of times there's been jet fighters, and there've been what happens. The Russians come across and come down sometimes and show the strength, and
Yeah.
you can see out to sea. But the jet fighters have been called out, and they've said, "Oh, like Russians, And
Yeah.
someone said, "No." Somebody that I knew back then, he turned around and said, "No, we weren't called out because of that." And I said, "Well, what were it?" And he said, "It were your lot." He says, and he calls my lot means aliens. He says, "It were
Yeah.
your lot." He says, they came down, and
Yeah.
buzzed us and what have you, and all these words and what have you. This is over 25 years ago now,
Oh
telling
yeah.
us, like a lot of the time when we've been called out, when jets have, been called out and what have you, and they've got,
You
and
froze.
this is what it is:
Okay.
intercepting UFOs,
Yeah.
and but I don't think they shoot at them. I think you know, but we're just talking again about the other one, you know. There's this area, like if you have a look in the new, if you're looking at in the newspaper online, you'll see what it says about this area and about
Okay.
undersea bases. Anyway, so we've got, let's call it what are we time wise? Time about 15. Are you all right for 15 minutes, Joe, to round it
Oh
up?
yeah, I'm still all right.
So, what do you want? Anything in particular you want to tell us?
Well, there's underground bases in Southern California
Yeah.
under the ocean, and I read an article that apparently there's some lake somewhere inland on
Oh,
the
is
on the
this
east.
in Colorado? Is it
Yeah, I don't know
Colorado?
whether it's Colorado or whether it's New Mexico or something like that. And
Oh,
apparently, the subs can go underground from the ocean all the way through up into this lake.
Joe, I've seen it because what they said was, why was the American Navy, right, in uniform in this area? It says, like,
Yeah,
what were they
and
doing there?
why
And this
why
is
are the subs appearing in the lake? Yeah, and I was
I
kind of like,
remember that. I
you
remembered
know,
it. It was
in order for
unbelievable.
something like that to happen, they've got to have locks that they can go through because there's a difference in water levels and all that stuff. And the ocean is salt water, and this lake is fresh water. You
And
know,
if you drill an hole in and you let salt water in, you'll flood
it,
it.
yeah. So
This
it was just kind of one of those strange things where I was going like, okay, yeah, we'll have to find out more about that. I've got a friend who's a podcast. He was a podcaster until he got a hold of my story, and then he decided that it wasn't valuable to talk about my story.
Yeah,
So
Malibu and Lake Rainier. Johnny says, but I'd seen another one. It wasn't Malibu. I'd seen it somewhere it was more in the States.
yeah,
Um, and it was like, it was like desert. It's somewhere. It's a desert region.
yeah, yeah. That would be New Mexico and Arizona and those
Yeah,
places. Yeah,
and I'm just trying to think because I watched that many. I used to watch that many. I can't say I do now. Um, but and this guy, he just could not be. Well, how did they get there? What were they there for?
yeah,
But
exactly.
remember, just because it says U.S. Navy, just think about it, right? Yeah, like originally the Special Air Service,
Yeah,
everybody were looking for them up there, dropping down air service,
yeah,
but there were long range reconnaissance patrol desert originally. That what I mean, and
yeah.
then they got the wing. So the thing is, you think about it. Just because it says Navy, don't mean to say they might be in a ship in the water, right? Think
Well,
about this.
you talk about the UFOs coming out of different big lakes and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Lake
Exactly.
Titicaca is famous for UFOs coming out of it.
Yeah.
You know,
This is what I've been trying to tell people, right? Yeah. You know,
you
it's
know,
like there's
and,
a
and
lake.
like off the California coast, Southern California coast, the area that they were holding military exercises in when they saw the Tic Tacs
Yeah.
is an area that's known for uh, UFO activity. And I had read, oh God, what was the guy's name? Tompkins. William
Right.
Tompkins had wrote about his interaction with aliens, designing ships and stuff.
Yeah.
And he had they had taken him, one of the gals that was an alien had taken him on a trip out of that area of Southern California off this coast. And what they'd done is somewhere around San Diego or something like that, they had gone underground and then gone over to the base, and then taken the UFO. And he talked about them having actual speed zones in space around the planets and stuff. So you could only go so fast in this zone, and you couldn't go faster than this speed, and you couldn't go faster than that speed. Depending on how free the atmosphere was. or the surrounding area of space was of different debris. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He talked about it being like a motorhome that they were in, that she was flying. So I don't know, probably about 30 foot long with sleeping quarters and all that stuff on it.
Wow.
Which I don't think needs to be for most of the aliens if they're operating outside of time, but if they're operating within our timeline, they probably have to.
You see, the thing is, with our craft, what we were in, very similar Tic Tac torpedo craft, but originally, you know, they open up and they're like a ball of light.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you walk in and the thing grows behind you. So if you stand in, you step in, the thing comes and expands, and the rest of your unit go in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it goes zoom. So you're all in it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the end closes, and inside there's these like bars that come down, sort of thing, and you sit on a seat, a small seat, and it winds round you so you don't fall off, like, and you hold on, and you can have one or two at that side, and one at that side, or two at that side, or however as many, and you can go from front to back, and you can have up to 10, 50, 100, 1,000 men in one. But the thing is, when it takes off, and you're all in, even if there's 1,000 of you in, it can go down to the size of an house, down to the size of a car, right? Yeah, and we're still inside.
Oh yeah, this
And we're
is
not
why
like sardines.
This is why I don't like the idea. MUFON has decided that they aren't going to investigate orbs, light orbs. Well, what you're talking about is a light orb that can go any size, and once you're in it, you're in a different dimensional space than what we conceive as dimensions.
Really?
And that's not a problem, I mean,
I'll tell you what I've heard.
it's like the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than on the outside.
Yeah, well, you've got that's it. You got it in one. You said it in one. That really.
Yeah.
Right. I'll just put this to you. Right. Yeah. Am I of the right understanding? Also, you're not looking at anything paranormal. You're looking at UFOs, but nothing paranormal as such.
It seems paranormal to us in our timeline and our dimensional reference that we're familiar with, because it's outside of that.
But
it's not paranormal at all. It's not paranormal at all. There's nothing paranormal about it just at all.
But UFOs are paranormal because it's outside the norm, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
am I under the understanding now that you're told you haven't got to investigate anything paranormal?
No.
You can.
We're not allowed to investigate cryptids, paranormal, like ghosts and stuff, or orbs. Those are not allowed to be out.
Right.
MUFON cut a deal. MUFON cut a deal with the government.
What about fairies?
No, they're out of the normal.
What about hang on, giants?
Out of the normal.
Right, I'm going to say this now, right? Yeah. When I've gone out and investigated UFOs, we have a map. In fact, we've got so many maps all over the place, right? Yeah. So you look at your map and you look at where the UFO's been reported, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go, right, what's there? So what we do is we look and we'll say, right then, let's look at this one, for instance. And we'll say, well, what we've got is we've got a lake here, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, and you'll never guess what, but in that lake, in history, going back, there is a monster, right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
right. Yeah, and it's right next to where this UFO's come down and
Uh-huh.
landed, and there's aliens. Just round the corner, there's a lake known for a monster, and they
Uh-huh.
give it a name. It's a Celtic name, right? Yeah. Then we've got fairies that have been seen, right?
Yeah.
Then we've got a dogman that's been seen, right? Yeah. We've got an
Yep.
area where Romans were. We've got castles, right? Yeah. We've got settlements. We've got Celtic settlements. We've got places where they've buried their dead, right? Yeah. We've got a
Yep.
place where they think there was sacrifices done.
Mm-hmm.
We've got places called because of names, because the things have been seen,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. We've got ferials, we've got ring circles, we've got standing stones,
Yep.
right? Yeah. And along, if you go back in history and you look at the old papers and you find stories about UFOs, about things that have happened in these areas of great importance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All part of where UFOs have been and landed and aliens have been. They're talking about the same things, the same creatures that were seen thousands of years ago in the same area.
Yeah.
And that's not important. Wow.
Yeah. Well, in the US
Wow.
here, they've kind of played down the native histories and the native, you know, whatever, for sightings and stuff like that. But a lot of the sightings that we have been having, since World War II, have been where we have nuclear stockpiles.
That's right. Yeah, training center. Yeah, Nevada.
Yeah, China Lake.
Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking of.
That's good. Yeah. Gonna yeah, for sorry. Yeah, you're right there, mate. We both were thinking about the same one. Oh, so
So,
yeah, so this is unusual, Joe. I mean, it's all part of the same thing.
well, I've been seeing insects now.
Yeah,
In someone had just it was just posted in one of my news feeds. Someone had found something that looked like a dragon that was an actual insect. It looked
uh-huh.
like a miniature dragon,
Yeah.
like you're used to seeing for
Wow.
from England or
Yeah.
Germany or wherever. And someone else had something, another one that they found that looked like a fairy.
Well, where I
It looked
was
like it had a
abducted.
little head on it and little arms and little wings and
I think
legs.
I've seen it, but where I was abducted, right? Yeah, just down the lane, Druid's Altar Lane.
Uh,
Someone said to me, "What on earth were you doing, meditating on an altar stone?" Anyway, just over the road is a famous area where the two cousins, the two girls, right? Yeah, um,
yeah,
filmed the fairies at
yeah.
a place called
Okay,
Cottonley. It's just a couple of mile over the road from where I were abducted. Do you get the picture?
I get the picture.
Roman settlement where I was, altar stone. Down below, the Romans set off from Bingley, and I think that ninth Roman Legion went missing on its way to Scotland. They had oyster farms down there, all sorts, unbelievable, and it was just where this area, there were standing stones, and there's where this happened to me, there's a story of a giant called Romble who walked on Romble's Moor to Ilkley, where there's a famous Ilkley man, the Green Man of Ilkley, the little alien with a flying saucer that landed there, all around these areas. Joe, we're coming to the end.
I see that.
Hang on, let me put my gigs on again.
Valiant Lord prints so much so fast.
Completely search the secret departments of NSA in 73. Oh, right. Oh, hang on. What was the one before it? Hang on.
Yeah, that's the one before it.
The amazing story, discovered time, sort of deep inside the canyon, Millennium Canyon.
Chaco Canyon in New Mexico.
Right. Thanks for that, for. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Contact Intelligence Organization. Wow. Yeah. Well, we've gone through, as usual, we've gone through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. But we can do, because we know so much about what's going on, and in my department, your department, and yours. And I need to find out more. Frequencies, it's amazing.
Well, I can send you the frequency list again.
Yeah, I think I had a problem with my computer. It looks like somebody stopped me. I didn't realize. I've been told somebody sabotaged my book and what have you on Amazon, and one of my websites has been. And I thought I hadn't got any information from that for a long time. Turns out it hadn't been working. Somebody clicked on it, and anyway, not to it. Just one of those things. If they want to do that, good on them. If you want to mess about, I've seen more and got more information than, and don't worry about it. If you want to do stuff like that, fair
enough.
Yeah. As we say, Joe, don't we? Been there, done it, got this T-shirt, got the video and what have you,
Yeah.
So
I know
we're all right. What's just one more? What does it say? Department secret in Department of NSA headquarters, Belgium. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's more Joe's line. That's more Joe's line. All that stuff. So you'll have to come on again. We'll have to go through. Let people know. People that haven't heard. I don't mean haven't heard of you. I mean people haven't heard about where it all started. The Montauk project, what you're in, and what have you. I mean, terrible. Absolutely.
Yeah, the frequency list says that some of the frequencies they used for the Monroe tapes for the Montauk project for the training for remote viewing.
Yeah. Unbelievable. We'll have to go through it all. Well, we've done all right. I hope you've enjoyed the program, everybody out there. I'm going to have to try to get you to come on and send a link. I've only just learning how to do that. So if you want to come on and talk as well, I'm going to open up. I asked first, so I'd ask Joe if that were all right next time.
Yeah, that's fine.
But thank you everybody for listening, watching.
Have a good month.
Say again, sorry, Joe.
Have a good month. Good week. Yeah. Great week.
Yeah. And thanks a lot, Joe, for coming on the show. As usual, it's been fantastic. Really enjoy it. So many questions.
I enjoy talking to you too.
so many questions to ask you. You know what I mean? Never get a chance. I'll
Yeah.
say good night, God bless to everybody, and we'll go off live now. And thanks again, Joe. Thanks everybody that's been on the show.